Hi, everyone. Did we enjoy our lunch? Are we excited for the afternoon? I hope I won't see people dozing off. We're good? We're excited? Come on, guys. Are we excited? Awesome. That's good to hear. So at this point, I would like my panel to just take a minute to introduce themselves, and then I will share with you what we will be covering, and then we will get started. So I'll start with the only gentleman on the panel. Alex, please.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I do agree with you. It's a very warm crowd. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you very much. My name is Alex Muriu. I come to you from Absa Bank, where I am privileged to serve as head of customer experience. I have been in marketing technology and CX space for about 12, 13 years odd so far. I think I'm at the most exciting part of my career, so I'm looking forward to share more about what's going on at the moment. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. No. You guys gave Alex a better good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Seema DeSouza. I currently look after customer experience at Equity Group. I think a lot of my friends know that I always introduce myself as a person first. So I'm going to start off by saying I am a wife of 1, a mom of 7, and a daughter of 3. That's how I like to introduce myself. Just to classify, I don't have 7 actual children. I have 2 girls, I have 3 fish, and I have 2 dogs. That makes me a mom of 7. In terms of, back to serious stuff, in terms of professional, in terms of my career, I have worked within ops, business, private banking, corporate banking, and branch banking, and now customer experience. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. You guys are not lucky. We are in customer experience. We talk. We like to talk, and we like people to talk back to us. So it's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Dorothy Jumba. I take care of customer experience at HFC. We are a bank, and like Seema, I also like to introduce who I am as a person. I'm a wife and a mother of 2. No dogs, no cats, no other things. Yes. Yes, I love customer experience, so I'm really looking forward to this session as well. I've been in the customer experience space for about 15 years now, in telecommunications, in banking, in different industries. So I'm looking forward to this, and I hope you'll enjoy the ride. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. You didn't clap for her. Thank you. We like appreciation as customer experience, just like our customers. My name is Pauline Macharia, and I serve at SBM Bank. I'm the Director Customer Experience at SBM. A little bit background about myself. No dog, no children. Love to travel. I've been in the corporate space for about 28 years, and 7 of which have been in banking. So I've worked in different markets, Dubai, Singapore, South Africa, Germany, London, Kenya, and I love customer experience. So today, we're going to demystify what's CX and how it contributes to this innovation space. So we look forward to an exciting, interactive session, and thank you for having us.
Awesome. Please clap for all of them. And as you were warned, this is the CX panel, so we will keep engaging you, interacting with you, checking to make sure you're okay. So just indulge us for a few minutes. And I am Judith Bogonko Juma. I am the Chief Commercial Officer at Fingo Africa. You already heard about Fingo slightly earlier, and you'll be hearing more about it tomorrow, so please check in tomorrow. And before Fingo Africa, I had been in insurance for about maybe 11 to 12 years, different roles, mostly around customer experience, around innovation, and around digital transformations. And that is why this topic is very core to me and very important to me. And I'm joined by an amazing, amazing panel that are industry giants in their own right. So I am excited to learn from them and just, ask questions, ask for you to expound, for you to give as many examples as you can give, so that everyone here can leave knowing whatever challenge they're facing, they can overcome. How can they, in their own organizations, work with CX to, transform whatever experiences the customers are having, so they don't think of it as this digital, this tech, this IT, this, marketing, and then this CX on its own. How can we work together to transform the customer's experience with us? So we'll just get started right into it. And the first question I would like to ask is, what role have you played in your capacity as head of customer experience in driving digital transformation in your organization? We keep hearing about digital transformation, I think, from all the speakers who've been here. So as a head of CX, what role have you played in driving or working with other teams in driving digital transformations? Dorothy, please take that question.
Thank you, Judy, so much for that. When I think about customer digital transformation in HFC, HFC was started in 1965, so it's 50 years old. It's older than most of us in this hall. So just based on that, we came from a very heavy legacy of paper. We have a lot of records. We have rooms full of paper somewhere. So even the simple things like just transforming that and putting that into a system, for us, equaled some level of digital transformation. So I remember one of the very initial things that we had to step in as customer experience and do was even to just start sending people e-statements, right from sending people statements through the post office. So just having that moved from paper into the system and being able to digitize and later on being able to put passwords on that. So for us, that was a level of digitization. However, going by that pace, we were not going to make a lot of impact because that is slow. So we decided to embed customer experience into every product and every service that was delivered, and systems as well. So we came up with a mobile banking app that is called HFWIS. And what I love about that app, it was customer driven. So it was not technology driven. The technology came after we had decided what was good for the customer, what the customer journeys were going to be. And that was driven from a customer experience agenda. So we were able to deliver solutions onto a platform. If you go to the app, you will not see anywhere written current account, savings, or any of those things, because we are not giving you an account, we're giving you a solution. So what solutions are we offering you that you can be able to actually be able to get on that app? So the app is something we're really proud of because it culminated from customer journeys and just engagements with customers. And I think for me, that was a really key deliverable.
Awesome, thank you. And just as you've talked about that, and one of the things that keeps coming up is data. And it said that the data that is collected digitally using digital channels then help with accuracy. And a lot of organizations then end up using this data for decision making, for strategies, for solutions, like you've said, the customer first, then the technology. And so Alex, I think the last conference we had with WFIS, your head of data, who I think is also here, talked about how you guys use data, and it was just looking so fascinating. We were like, these people, they must be doing everything. So will you be able to share with us an example of how you have used data from the CX perspective to be able to get solutions that then made sense to the customers?
Yeah, happy to do that. Hartnell will be speaking tomorrow, actually, so I hope we'll all be here to listen to that part. So as I said earlier, I mean, from a career standpoint, previously I was traversing marketing and technology quite a bit. And that has proven to be very beneficial for me because especially towards the last 2 to 3 years, and this is about a year before Barclays became Absa, this is back in 2020, and then for the last 2 years, data had become such a big conversation for us in the marketing space. And we actually had, in collaboration with our data office, been able to start implementing what we were calling data-led marketing initiatives, which basically focused on doing quite a bit of analytics around our audiences, using all those fancy machine things that they do to extract what we would sort of predict our customers would be interested in, and then our marketing would be based on that. We did quite a bit of work with something we call lookalike audiences, which is based on who we know and what we know about our customers and the behavior that they have. We don't do, spray and pray kind of marketing. We now go out and specifically look for people who are very similar to these guys. That was very successful, I would have to say, because some of the products we launched post the Absa coming into the market had been informed by a lot of that data. So we have a product we call Absa One. So it came in out of a lot of insight and around just removing all the barriers that typically would be there, somebody taking up the product. I would say it's easily our most successful product at the moment, sort of outpacing all past, broke quite a number of barriers. And that was a big part of it. So when I came into customer experience about a year and a half back, I had that wealth of sort of experience with data that came in. The biggest challenge, and maybe I'll talk about it later, came in when I realized, and I was telling my colleagues earlier, CX touches everything. Marketing is just about communication. So I know the data I want, I go get the data, I come and do communication. CX touches everything, from the branch to your call center, to your technology channels, to your everything, right? And it has been an exercise in kuokota, if I was use that word, like just collecting data from everywhere. And we are collaborating with our data office quite a bit to try and now make sense of what our desired customer experience is against what we are seeing. So how does that queue experience at Queensway here translate into certain customer sentiments in the contact center, whatever that might be, and how do we correlate the two to make sense of what our design should be moving forward? So, to be honest, still work in progress, but it remains a big anchor of what we're trying to deliver on CX.
Awesome. I love that. And in terms of, I love that you've spoken about the data elements and collecting data and then trying to engage the customers based on the data that you've collected. And so beyond that, and Seema, I need you to take this one. Beyond that, beyond just using the data that you have, we have seen a lot of transformations where we have customers involved in the journey. We have them, coming in during the stages when long before the product has gone to the market. Because in the past, it used to be them being interacted and asked for the feedback after the product is in the market. But we've seen quite a shift where they're brought in from design stage, they give feedback, it's incorporated, all that and more. So have you used this, brought in customers before in the organizations that you've been in? And what has the experience been? And how different was it from before where you brought the customer in later?
Okay, thanks for that, Judith. Okay, so I'm going to answer it a bit differently. I'm going to talk about an example from my past first, and then bring it to how data and digital journeys can actually help that. So I want to talk about back in 2003, I don't know if anyone was born here, but 2003, I was certainly born and working. And there was a bank called NIC Bank, and I don't know if there's anyone here from NIC or NCBA now, where I was asked to go back and launch a product called Move. I'm not sure if anyone has ever heard of that product. But I just want to speak about how it is that we created that product. And when you speak about including the customer in creation of a product, I feel that for me, is the example that I will always go back to, because despite not being digitally savvy at that point in time, it was one of the products where when NIC wanted to launch a retail brand, and luckily for me, I had a blank slate because there's no legacy bank. You're launching a brand new, fresh proposition for a bank. We co-created it completely from start. Actually, we incorporated them in ideation, first by asking, what do you want? There's this bank that's looking to cater for your needs. What do you want? And sat in a room and almost had a customer council kind of approach to building a solution for NIC called Move. And it was great because we were very targeted. We were targeting a gap in the market that had been identified at that time for an upwardly mobile kind of customer who wants to be cool, feel connected with their brand and so forth. And so we went to those specific customers, selected quite a few, maybe about 100 customers to get onto this focus group that was constantly engaged from start all the way through to design, testing the design with them. Testing even the look and feel of debit cards. The bank didn't have debit cards. We didn't have ATMs. We didn't have, let me say they, sorry, because I don't work for them anymore. But they didn't have ATM cards. And at that time was called ATM cards. And somebody was speaking about that earlier. They didn't have banking application forms, account opening forms. We ran them through every single aspect. And if you remember, Move was very colorful. Originally, Move was not supposed to be like that. It was supposed to be navy blue, which was NIC's color. But our customers actually said, no, they don't want it. So the reason why it looked that way is because of the customer. And I think that's one of the reasons why our customers at that time really connected with that brand. It was a proposition that actually banks right now are trying to offer their customers. It was 24-hour service centers, cashless banking. So, there were CDMs at that time, so cash deposit machines, ATMs available, staff members available at any point in time to access just for engagement purposes. And so if I take that collaboration with customers from that time and then now bring in the benefit of digital and what we have available to us in terms of technology, I really think that brand would be in a completely different space. Imagine having a brand that already had such an amazing infrastructure that had been collaborated on with the customer and infusing it with digital onboarding, digital engagement, using data for specific use cases, digital lending, all of those kind of things that we're all looking for right now. I think it would have been, a real force to reckon with. Now imagine applying that digital journeys to a bank that is existing right now and has legacy systems. It would have been, it is, we're all on a journey. It is very complicated as it would have been at that time. So just to answer your question, digital journeys are amazing. They can transform what it is that you can do and, the agility within which that you can execute. But we just cannot do things without the customer. Right now, we can run and deploy digital journeys. They can be completely unsuccessful because you never involve the customer from the start and through the process to the end, and then even monitoring after deployment to make sure that you're constantly meeting their expectations, which are constantly evolving. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, yes, it does. And just as you were talking, what came to mind is, the way you could have engaged the customers and they told you one thing. And yes, expectations change. And customers are known for having liquid expectations, So one day they want this, and because we're called the microwave generation, where you want things like this. In fact, there's a speaker earlier who talked about magic, as I'm thinking, it's open. As I want, it is done, that kind of a thing. And so I know in CX, because we are all in that space, we get the feedback firsthand, right? We get the feedback, we look through, then we start trying to think, okay, what can be done to be able to meet this need? What can be done to be able to, reduce either these complaints or to be able to serve more customers in a way that they're delighted? And so CX ends up being involved quite a bit in the transformations that are there in the organization, in the strategies that are there in the organizations. But sometimes there's challenges that you face when you're trying to say the customer wants this, the customer is asking for this, but then there's challenges that you face and brick walls that you keep hitting. And so Pauline, SBM, yeah, have you faced any challenges when you're trying to push for transformations, when you're trying to push for a new thing to be adopted, when you're saying, oh, NIC have done this, why can't we do this, or our customers are asking for this, why can't we give it to them? What kind of challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them?
Thank you for that question. I'll take it a bit back and, when you look at customer experience, when you think customer experience, it is not an event, contrary to popular belief. Customer experience is actually a lifestyle. And when we are creating or whatever we're doing, we're looking at it and saying, what kind of positive experiences do you want our customers to have? So with that in mind, we're looking at technology, we're looking at people, we're looking at processes. So there's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen. So you find that, like for example, in my experience, what happens is that you have working groups, small working groups with something that you need to resolve. And you come together through cross-functional teams, and you work together, whether it's with operations, IT. CX is always involved because we tend to be the police of the customer, making sure that the customer is represented at the table. And you find that also, you find it in Amazon. Whenever they're doing something, they always have a seat in the room, and that's the customer's seat. So whatever it is that we're designing, the IT team, the innovation team, who are we designing for? That's a fundamental question that we must answer in everything that we're doing. In everything we're putting together, are we doing it for the institution to grow, or are we doing it for the customer to help us grow? So that's a bit of a different mindset. Some of the challenges that we had to overcome over time in my career is a change of mindset, where you'll find that, and that's why I said it's a lifestyle, where you find that when you look at customer experience, one may think it's customer complaint. It's not. It's just like 0.0005 of the entire customer experience. So when you're and we're trying to overcome the challenges, the other thing we look at is the customer journey mapping. So you map out the journey of the customer, and somebody mentioned here, you design the digital experience, the digital journey. What is it going to look like? So you design the experience with the customer in mind. In our case, everything we were putting together, we put together in mind that the person that we're designing for is the customer. How are they going to experience it? What will it look like? What are the moments of delighting this customer? And what are the potential pain points? So being bold as an organization, when you identify the pain points, is to eradicate those pain points before you go to market. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of noise. Another element of that, which is very critical, is around employee experience. Are the employees relating to what it is that we're doing? So bringing them along the journey helps to overcome the challenges that you're dealing with. The other one is around, critical to the journey is incorporating the vision, the values. What is the values of the organization? So if everybody is resonating with the values of the organization, whatever it is that we're trying to launch, it makes it easier. So it's no longer a customer experience department are doing this. No, it is the way of doing things around here in this organization. So clearly defined values, clearly defined mission and vision to make sure that it's incorporated. Also making sure that as CX, my role to overcome these challenges also has been being part of strategic committees. So whenever business is making a decision, CX has a seat in that conversation. When IT is putting together and doing transformational journeys, CX is part of that conversation to give their inputs in terms of what needs to be taken into consideration or what needs to be considered. And every time when CX is represented, so please, leaders who are in this room, when you're putting something together, make sure that there's a customer experience person in there, because they will tell you what the customers are saying. They have the first-hand customer information. And of course, there's a typical doing mystery shopping, the typical customer satisfaction survey, but they're not enough. You still have to engage with your stakeholders, have a seat at the table and making sure that your voice is heard in this conversation. So that's some of the things that we did to overcome our challenges.
I love that, and I love the idea. I think I heard it from you first, the idea of having in every meeting, you have like a seat for the customer. So that whatever decisions are being made, you're like, what will the impact of this be on the customer? Because sometimes you find conversations happen, decisions are made, and we're like, yeah, this is amazing for the company, but then you don't realize what the impact to the customer will be. And if it's a negative impact to the customer, in the long run, it will still be a negative impact to the company. And so just touching on that again and looking at when you use data and when you have engaged customers and you give them a solution that you think they have asked for, And then once the solution goes to the market, the uptake is, negligible, abysmal at best. And you're sitting wondering, but they kept asking for this. They say they want this better. They would say they want this differently. And now we're giving it to them, and the uptake is nothing to write home about. Have you seen that? Have you experienced it? And what have you done? What could have led to that happening? And how then did you recover? What could you have done differently? If you could share something, Alex.
After Pauline finished her update just now, I felt like we should have finished the panel there, because those are the key moving parts. Those are the key things that any stakeholder trying to truly transform the organization from a CX lens, they have to think about. One of the things that we are tackling right now, which I know anyone from any bank here, and probably insurance as well, will resonate with, is the issue of dormancy, and basically accounts going inactive after a certain point of time. Now, when it comes to the issue of how do you get CX on the table, how do you get decision makers to actually think about customer experience, I've learned that it's very important to be able to word it in ways they can understand. Because if I come and say our NPS is at 20, it should be at 70, I'll be like a flower girl in that room. Nobody will listen to me, right? But if I come and say that, we launched this product, and I'll use an active example again with Absa One, which I'm very proud of the work we did with that. We launched it, and one of the things that a few months into the launch of the product, there was a huge uptick, and then we started seeing this decline, right? And so the conversation became, how do we change that trajectory of inactivity with this account? The average dormancy rate in the banking industry is about 50% as it stands right now, more in some cases. So the moment you say that, and then you're able to quantify the amount of revenue leakage that is coming as a result of these customers going dormant, then the heads around the table rise up, right? And then now Alex and these people come in and say, we can help you, right? And that's where customer journey mapping comes in. That's where, the data work comes in and all this kind of stuff. So we have gone quite big with customer journey mapping at Absa as a result. Interestingly, even in my previous role, we were involved in quite a bit of customer lifecycle management work that was geared towards, so dormancy was a big thing. Digital channel usage was another big one, and the realization that actually the reason people use or do not use some of these platforms comes down to experience, right? It's I had a complaint or I needed this password reset, and it was a nightmare trying to get it done, and I dropped off, right? So it's a customer experience issue, but with a very direct correlation to business performance. And so bringing that to the table for us has helped navigate that challenge of how do we get everybody on the table to actually tackle this CX issue. CX is about the customer, but guess what? Ultimately, it's actually about business. We're trying to make more money. And if making people happier gets us more money, then let's do it. And that's how we navigate that.
Awesome. Dorothy, I'd like you to also take the same question, just around the challenges you have faced as you are trying to drive the transformations that are there, whether internal or external. So whether with the customers or internally while trying to engage the rest of the organization?
I think I faced the same challenges that Alex faced. Sometimes having that conversation around bringing CX to the table, you have to prove. You have to prove that this will somehow translate to the bottom line, which is not always a direct one-on-one effect. So that was one of my biggest challenges. And what I did, I actually used NPS. I think for him, it didn't work for me, it worked perfectly. I introduced NPS because it was so hard to have that conversation without it veering off to money. How much are you going to give for this? So when we introduced the NPS, the first NPS that we did at HFC, the customers gave us a negative 24. So that was, it stopped everything, yeah? It stopped everything for a while. So people wanted to know, why are the customers so unhappy? Now that's when we came in with the solutions. If we do this, customers are not happy about this system, they're not happy about the solutions we're giving. So now I got audience. I got audience because of that. And as the NPS increased and improved over time, I got more buy-in. I actually got more buy-in, and as people started to see the correlation between an improved NPS and now incoming deposits and loan and all those other products that we are looking at, then people now started to take it seriously. So it really worked for us in that sense, just being able to get the voice of the customer through NPS for people to actually see what needed to be changed.
Okay, I think we are assuming the audience understands NPS, so maybe we can first expound on what NPS is and why it's used, and then, yeah, I'm sure then they can correlate what we've been saying. Yes.
I am very sorry. I hope I have not lost anyone, but just in case I lost you, NPS is a Net Promoter Score, is a tool we use, a system that we use very widely in the CX world. That is a survey that we do to customers that gives you an indication of who are your promoters, who are your brand fans, who are your brand ambassadors, and who are what we call detractors, the people who are not happy with your brand. And normally we just ask one question: would you recommend this brand or this product or this service to another person? So based on what the customer gives you, it's a scale of 0 to 10. Now, the rider question is usually the most important, why? So when you get to know the why the customer is a detractor or why the customer is a promoter, then that gives you room, or it gives you ammunition to actually make a change, mostly for the better. So the detractor sentiments help you to improve where you're going wrong. The promoter sentiments help you to know what customers like about your brand. So you're able to do more of that and replicate that effort so that you can build the promoters within your industry or your company.
Thank you. That's very spot on. Thank you very much. And so still going back to data. Most of you work for, advanced companies. You probably have a data team, you have data engineers, and you have data analysts. But I'm sure there's organizations here that are still on that journey, that are still figuring it out. That probably does not even have clean data, which I know is a very, very big issue in insurance. Banks are a bit more advanced in that. And so what would you advise a company that is still figuring it out in the data space? Because you've been there, you've walked that route, you have learned, you've made mistakes. But what are the things, maybe 3 things that you can tell a company that is figuring it out and just trying to understand how to, use the data that they have to still give value to the customers? What things have you learned that then you can advise these companies? Pauline?
I would honestly say start. It sounds simple, but start. There are a lot of tools which are already in the market that we can invest in. Or if the organization doesn't have the funding, start with what you have and make sure that you're collecting that. I remember once back in my career, we had to build a loyalty program. And to build a loyalty program, you needed data. So we started with forms. Collecting the data of the customer, what are their preferences? I used to work for an airline once upon a time. We'd collect their preferences. Somebody would say, I like red wine on my flight from Nairobi to London. So we make sure that on that flight, when this person is flying, they have their red wine. So you start connecting with the customer based on their need. Now, we've come into an era where data protection, Data Protection Act was launched in 2019. So for us to be able to use your data, we need the customer consent. That's even a bigger problem. So, and there are ways of overcoming that. Nowadays we have, and that's why I said we have tools which are inexpensive, where you get the customer consent and ask them that you'd like to find out this, and they first give you the consent before you ask them the question. So there are ways of making it easy without spending lots of money, but there are ways of getting it done. And the other thing is that it's important that whatever data you have, that we are using it effectively. Because according to the Data Protection Act, the question is, The customer needs to know what you're doing with their data. So also telling them what you're doing with the data as an organization is very important in getting the customer consent. For example, whenever you go around in Nairobi, primarily, and you're driving into compounds where there's an askari, there's gated communities, they ask you to fill that book, the black book with your name, your address, everything. Technically, they should not be asking you that. Nowadays, customers have a right to say, no, I'm not going to give you my information. Or even when you go to government offices, they tell you, give us your ID, write everything here. Technically, you can say no, according to the Data Protection Act. What does that mean? We need to be mindful of our evolving environment so that we can be able to come up with new strategies and new ways of connecting with our customers. The other thing is around, once you have the data, analyzing the data is so critical to see where are the trends, where are the opportunities, what are the thematic issues that we're noting. And the NPS is very, very good at that. It helps us to understand and analyze the data to see what are the opportunities. And also, last but not least, anytime a customer complains or there is a dissatisfaction, actually that is not a bad thing. It's actually the best thing could ever have received. Because we always say that feedback is a gift. It is an opportunity for us to see what can we improve, what can we change, and turn it around quickly that there's impact. That's what I'd say. Thank you.
I love it. And I love that you brought in the element of data protection and the impact that it is actually having on organizations. And a lot of customers have become very switched on about their data. There's some you call and they're like, where did you get my number? Why are you calling me? Who are you? And they've become very sensitive about how we're using their data. And Alex, in that regard, I'd like you to talk around what the impact of the act has been. What have you seen with your customers? What are the processes that you've had to change or engagements that have had to be maybe revamped or done differently just to align with the Data Protection Act?
It has created a lot of frenemies for me in our internal information risk teams. Frenemies because we kind of like each other now. After a while, you realize we're all trying to help each other out. Because that act came in to be just around the time, like I said, we had already gotten very excited about the data world, right? And our MD, Jeremy, had made it part of the strategy. This was pre the rebrand, and it was like if you were in the data conversation, you were in the right spaces. And then, my good friends from IRM, we call them, come into the room and say, sorry, there's a data office now, and here are the things that you cannot do, which was 90% of the things we wanted to do at the time. Now that was not great. But once especially in our case, we had to get a lot of education into that act and what we could or couldn't do. But also it was important for the team on the other side also to try and understand where we were coming from. So it was almost like a negotiation that we went through to get to a point where we were not violating any data protection rights that our customers have, but we are also not curtailing business at the same time. Because what happens is, if everyone is coming into the room with this black and white sort of stance, then you don't have a conversation. And we had cases where we even had to sort of seek mediation from outside counsel and bring them in and say, look, our IRM guys are saying this. We have, in our layman language, because we are Kiburi, we don't think they're right. So please help us figure it out. And it worked. And by the time, I think it was probably a year post rebrand, we were able to actually start doing a lot of data-led work. And it's really been great. Continues to be a learning process because it's a relatively new act. There's a lot of education, and our data office has done a great job with trying to make sure all of us are very well trained around that. And this is an important thing I would say, even to my colleagues in the room, really take time to educate everyone in the organization around data protection, because you don't want to be having the data protection discussion the day before you're about to launch a product. And that's when you're being told, sorry, you can't launch it because it's violating clause 15 and 17 and whatever else. Start early, do the education, and it saves you from a lot of trouble.
Agreed. I actually did get in trouble in a previous life where I did the whole kiburi thing, and I was like, we'll deal with the consequences later. But definitely that conversation between CX, risk, compliance, just, because CX, we want to communicate, we want to inform, we want to cross-sell, we want to engage, and you're told, no, you can't use this, and you can't do this, and you have to get permission for this. So definitely a journey that's continuing. But I love to hear what you're saying, just communicating and making sure everyone is on board and you all understand. And where it's gray, get outside counsel if need be. Probably my last question, because our time is almost up. I was at the tea break earlier, and one of the conversations we were having is a customer of a certain bank, I will not say which bank, was complaining about how, with digital journeys, maybe there's this solution that has been launched and they're like, oh, now you can chat us on WhatsApp in case you have an issue. And you go and chat and there's no response for about an hour. And you're like, I thought this is supposed to be digital. Or for instance, you are calling, and the IVR is taking you round and round and round before you actually get to a person to talk to, or it keeps disconnecting, and so you have to look for something else. Or you go and you tweet them, and maybe they don't respond, maybe they do, or they respond high level. And so even as we're trying to drive these digital transformations, even as we work on digital journeys, how then do you make sure you're able to see where the pain points on the journeys are and solve for them, such that these customers who are frustrated and dropping off? In fact, one of the things was, one of the companies said they noticed their calls had gone down and they were happy, not realizing it's because customers were frustrated on calls. So they were assuming complaints have reduced and queries have reduced, but it's actually because that particular channel was not working for customers. So in your capacities, and maybe Seema just take this one because of time, how do you make sure you're able to tell where the pain points are and solve for them before you've lost too many customers in the process?
Thanks for that. That sounds very familiar with respect to not responding in an hour for quite a few of us, actually. And so we're all culprits. I think an effective VOC program, which basically helps you have sight over every aspect that a customer is experiencing, is really, really critical. It's first of all just understanding where your customer is going to touch you, which touch points are they interacting with. How is it that you're able to get feelers out there across all of those touch points, which are real time and not necessarily a system? It's not all about system. It could be people in the branches who have an escalation call straight into you to say this is what's happening. So it's identifying the touch points that customers interact with you, ensuring that you have feelers in those places, use formal methods of then getting that feedback. So that you're on top of what's going on at all places. And then also ensure as a CX function that you really have that bird's eye view across the entire organization so that you're able to actually identify that Department X doing this is having an effect on Department Y, which is providing this service to the customer. So it's really taking that voice of customer, overlaying it over all of the processes and the service blueprint that you have for that customer, and identify that this is where the point of failure is. And then ensuring that, you have mechanisms to quickly respond to that kind of thing. To be really honest, I mean, things fail all the time. Everyone in this room has experienced failures. There's no brand that has been perfect. Even Amazon breaks down. But it's really how quickly you're able to figure out, okay, something's wrong, this is what's wrong, and go in there to fix it, so have a mechanism to fix it quickly. And go back to the customer, apologize, and do right by them. So having the entire framework in place is really, really critical in driving a strong CX proposition. We're all in our journeys of trying to put in place that whole collection mechanism, the feelers, making sure that you have your eye on social, whether it's social media, whether it's contact center, whether it's all of the touch points, and then have that ability and agility to be able to react and respond to issues as they come up. And then also, I think Dot had mentioned earlier, is to make sure that you put in place things that ensure that they don't recur. I used to hate receiving emails from companies which say, I'm really sorry, we have done everything to make sure that this doesn't recur. And then the next day it recurs. Yeah. It happens all the time. And I'm not even saying it doesn't happen at Equity. It happens. It happens. But I think it's just ensuring that you really are, have your eyes open and have the humility to be able to accept that something's wrong, react and fix it as fast as you can, and then constantly monitor. That's basically the whole cycle of CX, right? That's how we do what we do. So, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And that is our time. So we will leave you with this. CX works with the rest of the organization. I think Alex already mentioned that. We touch on every bit of the organization, and our interest, yes, while it's fast the customer, everything that we are pushing for still comes to the organization. It's still to the benefit of the organization, even though we are customer first. And so as we work with you, as we engage with you, as we let you know what the customer feedback is, as you work on your strategies and develop whatever solutions that you're developing, make sure you involve CX, make sure you listen to the voice of the customer through them. And as the CX professionals here and anyone else in the room in CX, like Seema has said, mistakes happen, breakdowns happen, systems crash, things happen. But how quickly you recover and how quickly you make sure that the experience for the customer is better and you're able to solve their issue, that makes all the difference. Thank you very much.
Where will you start from now? All right? From here? All right. Uh-huh. Wonderful. I appreciate her too. Yeah. Not to miss thank you. Asante sana. Wonderful. Yes. Take a photo. Yeah. It looks nice. They look so smart. Presented.